Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I'm starting a new little project today, something a bit different for me because I'm going to be using a machine instead of hand stitching. It's something I'm doing for a friend that I'm hoping is going to work out, and I thought I might as well put the cameras on and bring you along on this new little adventure. So just recently a friend of ours brought over a couple of bags of fabrics and trims and bits and pieces, vintage crochet books and things, all from her mum's craft stash because she was clearing some things out because they're moving, and amongst them were these two pieces which I think must have been trimmed off the bottom of dresses. They're like tubes, dresses or skirts, I think. So there's that one and there's this one, about the same amount of each. Like they've just been cut off and maybe to rehem something or whatever. Something I have to do quite often is take about that much off the bottom of things, or even more. And I thought because they've just moved house, it would be really nice to use these pieces to make a something quilted, a patchwork something. And I'm thinking maybe because they've got a nice garden and everything, they spend a lot of time in their garden. It's something we like to do with them, is go over and spend time in their garden. I thought maybe one or maybe even two, I'm not sure how far it will go, cushions for the garden, or a quilt like to go over your lap when it's cool in the evenings or something. I'll just see how that goes. Machine quilting is not something I've done really very much at all, but I've watched lots of YouTube videos. So let me go to the desk and I will show you what else I've got. I've got my ironing mat ready because I need to iron these before I cut them. I've also got my cutter. I've had for a while. I treated myself to one of these. So I quite often have wished over the years I had one of these. They seem to always be very expensive to buy, but I'm thinking this is worth splashing out on. So I've got them to do, and a cutting mat in a minute to cut the squares with. I'm going to make simple 4-patch squares and then cut them and rearrange the pieces to create an interesting pattern. And I'm thinking I'll aim at, a standard, is it a 45 centimetre? We'll see how it goes. Just depends how many pieces I can get out. Now I wanted some, these are about the same kind of I would say same sort of tonal value. So I needed some contrast. I needed some a bit plainer and some a bit kind of lighter and darker as well. So I thought, let's pick out some of the colours that are in there. So there's this bit of pink I've got. Love this fabric. Absolutely love this fabric. I think a little bit of that. So I like the idea of it, if it's going to be a garden thing, of it being all kind of floral. I've got some bigger ones and some small ones. I found this and I thought, well, bees, garden, picks up that blue in there and the yellow in there, and then there's some of this plain kind of a mustardy yellow. I haven't got a lot in the way of yellows, but I thought a little bit of this, because the squares will only end up quite small, I think would be quite nice. It might even be that I use a bit of this to go around the outside. I've got also some other, I didn't have any big pieces of a paler kind of this sort of a yellow. I have got these smaller pieces in here, the last of my sort of yellow scraps, quite short of yellow. Bees again. So I might see if I can just get just a few yellow squares out of this. Not sure about that, Spotty. Maybe. Just kind of pick up that colour, I suppose. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I should go with whatever size these squares already are. So they look a bit of a hodgepodge in a way at the moment, everything I've got here, but usually with quilts, once you see them all pieced together, they start to make sense, don't they? That's what I'm hoping. I'm watching a lot of quilting videos, and I think what I'm going to do is use some of my really tiny scraps and put them together into some different kinds of scrappy quilts and stuff. Use up a whole lot of tiny scraps and clear the decks a little bit. Make some lovely things that I can give as presents or whatever. For the backing of my cushion, and if I need any more plain bits, I've got this, quite a large piece of this. I thought, well, that kind of goes with everything there, I think. So even if I end up deciding to go with a quilt, it's a big enough piece as well. So I'll see how I go. I'm going to make the kind of start putting the quilt topper together and see how I go. So my first thing is to iron these pieces and then cut them into squares. Let's just measure those size squares because they look like quite a nice size, don't they? I bet they're going to be in inches. It's a 3-inch square, I reckon. I think I'm going to go for 7 centimetres. And then if I do a 1/2 centimetre seam allowance, because I don't think I need a whole centimetre, it doesn't need to be that much. So 1/2 centimetre either side, that'll bring it down to a 6 centimetre square. So if I was aiming at a 45 centimetre cushion cover, I'd have a border around it. Okay, I need to have a little bit of a quiet think about that. So let's get on and iron these pieces. Iron this out nice and flat first. So I'm thinking I'm going to do most of this by machine, but I will do some hand. I will do the quilting part by hand. Get steam to get this hem out. It's quite this fold here out of the fabric. It's quite a stubborn crease. Cut all these pieces of fabric into squares. Then when I'm ready to move on to the next step, I will be back, steaming away. It's going to take me a little while to press all these and cut them into squares, and I might just put aside enough to do the border as well. I'm not quite sure if I want a plain border or a patterned one, so I'll just keep enough aside to allow for whatever transpires. Kind of feel like probably a plain, but of course it's hot in here with this iron going and the lights on me. So yeah, I'm going to carry on and do this, and I'll be back when I'm ready to move on to the next stage. Right, I'm just cutting the last few pieces now. Ended up with 7 centimetre squares, but I've put aside a few strips of each of the fabrics as well, because I'm not sure which I want to use for the around the edges, or if I will use anything around the edges. I've ended up with loads. I mean, I counted up, where was it? I counted up this first little pile of these that I cut, and there was nearly 50 just there. So altogether there's what, at least a couple of hundred, I would say, squares here to play with. So I need to have a little think now, divide them up into the colours, perhaps think a little bit about tonal values, and have a little play. Perhaps I'll use some squared paper. Got some handy here somewhere. I'll use some squared paper to just play around with some ideas. I've seen a few different ideas on YouTube that I'd like to try, and I think, starting myself simple, because this is my first time doing anything like this. I'm kind of thinking there's a lot of ideas you can do with 4 patch blocks like that, where you make the initial block and then you cut it there and there and there and there, so you end up with 9 smaller blocks, and then you can rearrange them in different ways to create interesting patterns. So I kind of think that's what I want to do. I'm going to have a little bit of a play on paper first and plan it out a little bit, so that I know rather than just randomly start joining them together and regretting it later on. then when I've thought it all through a bit, I'll be back and tell you what I'm going to do. Well, I was really surprised at how much I got out of those pieces. So this is the next morning. I spent quite a long time yesterday evening. My husband even ended up joining in, arranging all the squares into what will become cushion fronts. And I managed to, so I got 4 cushion fronts and enough for a small kind of what I would call a lap quilt. And here's the little pieces I ended up with. So yeah, each of these, no, it's not 4 cushion fronts, it's 2 cushion fronts and the lap quilt, sorry. Yeah. So I've got all of these bits still left over, some long strips that might end up becoming borders. I've still got that background piece, quite a large piece of that, and the sort of mustardy colour too. So I've got some options there. And yeah, what I did was I just laid them out. I did it kind of the way Kate, the last Homely House shows, where, well, I think that's the way lots of people do it. They spread them all out, they lay them all out. I've got a huge great coffee table downstairs, so I just spread them out on there as I want them to be. I've decided against the idea of doing the stitching 4 blocks together and then cutting them and rearranging, because I just think these are too small to do that. I think it's a lovely idea and I want to try it again, but I don't think I need to. I think these are so small it'll look interesting enough just as it is. So yeah, I laid them all out as I wanted them and then picked them up from the top downwards. So let me just bring the camera out a little bit. So yeah, I laid them all out. I ended up with 7 rows of 7 to make a big square cushion. Once it's all seamed together, I'll decide how big I need the border to be to get the size cushion cover I want. So then I took each of my columns and picked them up one by one. So, and piled them up and pinned them together. So I know that this was the top of row 1. This was row 1, column 1. And I should have 7 of these squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then when I'm ready to stitch them together in a minute, I'll just unpin them and start stitching. Spread this one out. I know that this one is at the top, then that one, then that one, then that one, and so on. So I'm going to stitch them all together in these columns first, and then I'm going to stitch the columns together. Now, what I'm thinking I might try and do, because I'm machining, I almost decided I'd hand stitch it, but it's because of my reticence always about getting the sewing machine out. I'm determined this time I'm going to do it with the sewing machine, get this project done quite quickly. And I'm wondering if I'm confident enough to try a thing that I saw Kate doing, where she stitched these 2 together. So you would put these 2 together, wrong sides together, and stitch along there. And instead of just starting and stopping her stitching there and then going on to the next one, what she did was run it across into the first pair from the next column. So they would go like that. So she would stitch across there, and instead of breaking off the thread, she'd carry on and stitch along here. And then she'd take the top 2 from this pile and carry on and stitch into them. So you end up with them all kind of linked together in rows, and then you can fold these 2 columns together and seam them down there. I think I'm going to try that because I'm intrigued by the idea. Take these downstairs and do that, so that I can lay these out and pull from these little piles in an organised fashion as I go along. And what I'll do is stitch through them, and then I'll come back up and show you what I mean. I haven't got a kind of set up here where you can see what I'm saying. If I put my sewing machine up here, I don't think you're going to see much anyway. I need to have the iron next to me. So I'm all organised, and then it will be the same with the lap quilt, except this is bigger. I've got 1, 7, 8, yeah, 8 rows. So these are all 6 centimetre squares. I think I've already covered that. 6 centimetre squares. The cushion covers I'm doing 7 by 7, and this I'm doing 8 by, how many did I have in each one? Quite a few. It's a lot bigger pile, this one. 14, 15, 8 by 15, 6 centimetre squares. But of course I'll lose the seam allowance on each side as well, so it will come out obviously a little bit smaller than that. So I'm going to take these down now, stitch these together. I'm not going to, as I say, even try to film that because I'm not really set up to film that kind of thing very well, and there are so many videos on YouTube showing you how to do this. I just thought I'd just show the steps I'm going through at this stage, just briefly, and then when I get to the point of doing some hand stitching, then I'll come back and do some of that with you. So when I come back, hopefully I'll have some kind of columns all linked together and ready to stitch together to create the whole piece. It'll make sense when I come back in a mo, promise, hopefully. Or I'll end up throwing them all up in the air and starting again. It was so funny that my husband joined in as well. No, you don't want to put that one there. You've got another one like that over there. No, you need to put this one. He got really involved. He was approaching it like a Sudoku puzzle, which is kind of what it was, really. Anyway, okay, right. See you in a mo. Right, so I took my little piles of squares for the 2 cushion fronts and did, like I said, stitch them together into the kind of columns going that way. And like I tried to describe, I don't know if it made sense. I stitched these 2 together and then went straight into these 2, straight into these 2, straight into these 2, all the way along. And then I went on to the next pieces and did the same thing again. So I've ended up with this piece that's kind of 7 columns all linked together. So now all I need to do is turn them over like this, seam down there. Then turn these 2 over and seam down there and work my way along to stitch them all together. And that's what I've done with this one. Now it's not come out perfect, they don't meet together they don't meet together everywhere perfectly, but the people I'm giving it to, they're not quilters or anything themselves. They're not, I don't think they're really going to be looking for perfection. I think, you know, what they'll see is that it's bright and colourful and fun, and it was made with love, and by the time I've added some bits of stitching and things to it, I might put some little hearts or something in these plain squares. I don't think you're going to notice the fact that the squares don't meet up perfectly. I'm learning now. I did get my knickers in a bit of a twist part way through. This was the second one, and this went better. I was a bit calmer, more organised. I got my knickers in a twist doing this thing where they're all linked up. By the time I got to do the second one, I'd got the hang of it, and it really does help, because now I know that all of these are in the right order. So the next step is much easier. This one, I went out of order a bit, and so they've ended up like, I know I didn't have those 2 prints next to each other before, but hey ho. I won't show John, because otherwise his Sudoku head will come out. What I'll do is I'll put one of the heart shapes in there so it'll kind of distract from that. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Now, word of warning, you can see I'm a total beginner, can't you? So I wasn't consistent with how I pressed, with which way I pressed the seams. I kind of, if there was a darker and a lighter one, I sort of tried to remember to press towards the darker side so it wouldn't show through. But some of the fabrics were really insisting on going one way, like this thicker blue fabric really didn't like folding back, so that ended up, yeah. And then when I stitched all the rows together, of course, some were going one way and some were going the other way, so this one I've caught it in that way, and on this side I've caught it the other way, so that is a bit of a pain. But all I'm going to do about that is just no one's going to know. You won't tell anyone, will you? Just make a little snip and say that one can now go that way and that one can now go that way. Nobody will be any the wiser. With this one, I started off pressing most of the seams outwards. I say most because there's somewhere I really struggled. They didn't want to, like this one really didn't, yeah. Didn't like doing it, but I did insist in the end. So maybe pressing them outwards is is a better idea. I don't know, I'm sure the quilters I've been watching have said to press to the dark side. But then, you know, I ended up with this happening. Yeah, I just need to be a bit more careful next time. But it's just going to take practice. And for the overall look of it, nobody's gonna notice. So I now need to finish doing the same thing with this set for the other cushion front. It's come out just about the size I want, because by the time I add the borders on as well, and then of course I need to do that quilt as well, which is going to take a little bit longer. And then I'm really looking forward to doing the hand stitching part. I will use an old fleece blanket inside, or some wadding or something. I probably will give it a better press with a bit of steam as well, and I think I can make it look a little bit better. But I was just trying to finish this bit quickly now so I could show you this, because now I'm going to take all this down this evening and finish these off. Next time you see me, it will be hand stitching time. It's been an adventure. But if I can do it, it's partly why I decided to film this, even though I'm so far away from being an expert or being in a position to tell anyone how to do this. But my theory is, if I can do it, if I can muddle through, so can anyone. My aim is to encourage other newbies like me to have a go, but it's probably a good idea to go off and watch some videos by people who actually know what they're doing. I've got my patchwork square finished. It's just to recap, it's 7 squares that way and 7 squares that way. But I had another thought to make this a little bit interesting. Something I've seen on YouTube that they call book pillows. I think we would call it a book cushion here in the UK rather than a pillow, but the idea is it's a cushion with a big pocket in the front that you can put a book in, or your crosswords and your pen, or perhaps your phone or whatever. It's got a handle to carry it at the top, and you can use it to carry a book out to the garden or wherever you want to go and read, and then you've got the cushion to snuggle into or to pop your book on. I'm going to make these into book pillows because I think that's a lovely idea, and it'll make more of a fun kind of gift out of it. So I needed to create a pocket in this patchwork front, but I don't want to hide half of the pocket will go right across here. I don't want to hide almost half of the patchwork that I've done. Show you on the other piece what I've done. So I've cut it. I ended up cutting along my seam here the section with 4 squares at the top, and the section with 3 squares at the bottom. And then I've taken another piece, the same width and about half, the same length that way and about half the length that way, of a contrasting fabric. In fact, I've used this gorgeous print. It's the last bits I've got of this lovely print. And what I've done is, I've just pinned that at the moment, but I will machine it in a minute. I've cut 2 pieces that size, and I've pinned one to this smaller section and the other one to the larger section. So this one I will machine it along there, press all that flat. I'm still kind of going for a 45cm square, but I'm not too, if it ends up a little bit smaller, I'm not too worried, because if the cushion in is a little bit bigger than it needs to be, it just makes it nice and plump. So I'm not bothered about that. So that will be the sort of main part of it, and then the pocket will be created from this other piece where I had the smaller section with just the 3 squares that way. So this piece is the same size, because what I'm going to do then is just fold it in half. Once I've done that seam, fold it in half and press it so that this will create its own kind of binding to edge the pocket with. And then I will line it up so that the squares still kind of match and that patchwork continues. You've just got this binding to indicate where the pocket is to pop your books and things. I'm not sure if I'm then going to want to do an edging or not. I haven't decided, but if I do, I'm going to have strips of this colour, because I think that will pull it all together. For the back, I want to do an envelope back so that they can easily open it and wash the covers without having to wash the whole thing, because they have got a dog there, and it's going to be out in the garden, so they need to be able to wash it. These pieces are obviously too big, they will need to be trimmed. But the idea is it'll be an envelope closure, so these will need to overlap. I've got an extra piece to put on here, made out, one of the fabrics that I've used in the patchwork. And then the last thing I've got is Another piece, last little pieces using up of, so these are amongst the fabrics that came in Bee's mum's crafty bag, and this will create the handle to hold the book bag, but the book cushion by. This was the other piece. I made a bigger piece that I was intending as kind of a small, like a lap quilt. It's not really very big, but I suppose it would do. It's going to have a border on it. It'll have wadding inside. It'll be quilted, so it would make a small lap quilt, or it would be quite nice to throw over the back of a chair for added comfort, or it could even be used as a table runner or something. So yeah, I've cut a piece of this to use as the back end. So next thing is to get all these stitched together, and then I'll get my iron out and press them, and I'll be back when I'm ready to move on to the next step, put them together. I will be doing some hand stitched quilting before I put the pocket onto the front and the front onto the back. So yeah, I'll just get the machine bit done and get the iron out, and I've stitched those together, given them a good press so they lie nice and flat. Did the same with this one, and then turned it over to match up the raw edges and pressed it along there. I could top stitch this on the machine, but I've decided I want to add in some hand stitching because I just think it'll look more sort of personal and more me really. What I'm doing is lining up so that where the next square should have come, I'm matching it up so that it's still where it should be. So it's still lining up, and then I'm going to trim this so that I'm back to a square again. So I've now ended up back to 36 centimetres each way. What I will do once I've finished adding my hand stitched little touches is I will place these together carefully and just baste them there, and then I will put the edges on. So I'll do that and turn that out. So I'll end up with it being probably not the 45 centimetres I was originally aiming at. It's going to be a little bit smaller, but as I say, I can still use a 45 centimetre cushion filler, and it will just be nice and plump that way. So yeah, this will just end up with a border about sort of that all the way around, and I do think that blue does kind of set things off. Then of course there'll be the handle at the top. What I'm going to do, I think, because this is going on a little bit longer than I intended, getting a bit more fancy than I intended. I'll turn that oven off, iron off for a start. I'm going to do a little bit of stitching now just to show you what I've got planned. I don't want to do a just stitch in the ditch thing. I want my stitching to show. Maybe I'll put the batting just behind this part, but do this with just the a layer of, so this in effect has just got a layer of normal fabric on the back. And I like that. I like that the pocket's lined, even though you won't see it from the front. You will see it when you're using the cushion. So I'll do a little bit of stitching on this one, and it'll be whatever I end up doing on here will be what I end up doing on the backing piece, on the main part of the front, except it'll be batting on the back instead of plain fabric. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So just do a bit of really simple stitching on this. Well, I've just done the same thing I seem to be doing over and over again just recently. I've been wittering away to myself for 10 minutes. Oh. So what I've started doing here, and I have just been filming a little bit of, was just stitching through. I'm not bothering putting any batting or anything in here. I've got the extra layer of fabric that I use to line the pocket with, and I think that's enough. I'm going to do the same thing. I've just decided on doing rows and rows of cantha style stitching, and I'm going to do the same thing here but with a layer of thin cotton batting behind, just to give it a bit more texture and kind of substance. Once I've done those hand stitched details, and I think I want to put a little heart here where I accidentally put this piece of fabric on inside out. I think that's a good place to put a little heart. I think that'd be a nice little touch, so I'm going to do that as well. I need to do that actually before I do my straight stitching over there, so that the stitching at the back of the heart won't show through. Stitch all across there, add the heart on there, do the same here but with batting behind it, and then once the hand stitch parts are done, I will carefully line these up as I've got them now, baste them here and here to hold them together, then add the edging I'll come back and do that with you, which will kind of hold them both together. They'll both be enclosed by that edging. Add the envelope back, so those will go right sides. But I'll come back and do that again. I've decided all of this has got a lot more sort of complicated than I had intended it to be, so I'm not going to try and squeeze it all into one overlong video. I'm going to do a little bit of hand stitching with you now, and then I'm going to come back and finish the cushion off in a second video. So I've decided couldn't choose which colour to use because it's such a multicoloured piece, isn't it? So what I've gone with, and I'm really happy about, is this hand dyed variegated stranded cotton that I dyed myself using Inktense blocks. I haven't got to choose a colour, it's just going to go with everything, and I love how it looks on here. I've just done a couple of rows of straight stitching. I've already decided, I think, on this pocket, if I come in now, on this pocket I just started to do straight stitching. I think I'm going to take that line of straight stitching out and do a blanket stitch just along the edge. I think that will look really cute, and it'll be different from the body of the patchwork. So yeah, nothing fancy here. I'm just really doing straight stitching. It will take me probably this evening to do this. I've got the other cushion to do as well, and of course the lap quilt stroke chair back. Oh, look at that, by complete coincidence the variegated thread has ended up yellow where the yellow square is. So yeah, I'm not being too fussy here, just reasonably small and neat straight stitch. I thought about different ways. I had considered doing diagonal lines, crisscrossing, but I haven't lined up my squares well enough. It would be right if they were all like this, but they're not. I've done too many bits like that where they don't line up, so that's a no-no. I thought about doing just lines around each, lines of straight stitching around each square. I don't think that would look so nice on the back. Just not, you're going to see a lot of that inside pocket, but in the end it's just I'm just going to go with the straight stitching. It's very therapeutic because I haven't got to think too hard at all, and can't really go wrong with it. So that's what I'm doing, just some straight stitching, and then I'll do the same. Yeah, I'll change this. I'll go to blanket stitching there. I'll do the same thing with this, with the batting behind, and then when I'm ready to move on to the next step, I will be back and finish it all off. Just really, it's a assembly job then, just creating the envelope closure at the back, adding the borders on, and making the little handle. So yeah, all pretty straightforward, but I just don't want to make this this video ridiculously long, so I'm going to stop it there. I hope you've enjoyed that. I really hope my friends are going to like this. You know, it's like when you've made things for people, you're always a little bit, are they going to like it or not? I'm hoping that because I'm saying it's for out in the garden, that's taking the pressure off. They're not going to feel like they've got to have them out on show every time we go round. Because they're a garden thing, you know. I hadn't heard of book cushions before. They're completely new to me, but there's loads of them all over the YouTube. But I think it's a really cute idea. Let me know what you think. Have you made one before? I'm now thinking I've got quite a few friends who might like one of these. So I might get making, use up some of my stash, get making some and stash them away ready for Christmas. Thanks again for joining me. Special thanks to my channel members as always. 51 channel members now. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. I just can't tell you how much it means to me. It's just, yeah, run out of words. If you're interested in joining, there's a join button there somewhere. There's a subscribe button and a join button. The join button, if you click that, it will pop up a window and tell you all about what is involved in being a channel member. You can also click the subscribe button. That's completely free. One click of the button and you're done. Thanks very much though, just to everybody, just for taking the time to watch and leave your comments, and I really enjoy reading all of them, and yeah, makes me very happy. thanks again for joining me today, and I'm going to stop waffling and see you again very soon. Bye. Just don't know how to stop again, do I?